Well, a lot of us have taken a break over the summer, but some of the people who haven't are, well, Congresswoman Susie Lee, working as hard as ever.
That's right. Everyone thinks August is sort of our time to take a break. We come back to the district and do some work and get out and talk to our constituents and meet with groups here in Nevada. So we've been busy.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, in Washington, it's like, hey, everybody's going on vacation, but it's not really a vacation. This is when you really have to, sit down in your districts and be held accountable for what you did or what you didn't do, right?
Absolutely.
So what are you finding out when you talk to Southern Nevadans, Las Vegans? What are you finding out? What are people interested in right now?
Well, most importantly, people are still interested in making sure they can afford day-to-day living. And as we've seen, our housing costs are going up. But people are working, the economy is strong, things are strong in Nevada. We're seeing record revenues at the casinos month after month. People are back to work. But I do believe that people still want to make sure that we in Washington are working to help bring down costs of health care, bring down costs of housing, and make sure things are accessible to them. And so that's sort of what I'm hearing on the ground. Generally positive, but still, we can still be doing more.
One of the things I know that you're very vocal about is the Inflation Reduction Act. This is a bill that was passed, a year ago, that the president, is really backing. He didn't get as much money, I guess, at the time that he wanted. But it seems to have contained a lot of great things in the bill. And I don't know if we Nevadans really know what's in the bill and what we can expect. I don't know how good a job the president has done of really explaining it. Hopefully you can do a better job.
Absolutely. Well, I like to put it into three different buckets. First and foremost, prescription drugs. This bill included the first time that Medicare will negotiate Part D prescription drug pricing, which will bring down the cost of common drugs that so many Americans rely on. It will only benefit Medicare recipients.
Let's explain it.
Okay.
Okay, because we talk oftentimes in these sweeping statements and we think that everybody understands the history. Like right now, insurance companies can negotiate whatever price they want with the pharmaceutical companies for reimbursement for the cost of medicine for years. Now, this is something that, look, it's been on my list to talk about for the last 30 years. For years, some people have been saying, hey, we have such great buying power as Medicare that we can buy such a big piece of the market that we should go, as Medicare, should go in and negotiate with the pharmaceutical companies to lower the price of drugs, of prescription drugs, because they're higher in the United States than they are in any other Western civilized country.
Correct.
Right.
Medicare is the largest healthcare purchaser in the country. And the fact that they were never able to negotiate prescription drug prices really meant that the largest purchaser of drugs, the largest cohort, wasn't able to take advantage of that buying power. So you're going to see the cost of drugs go down. Not only that, $2,000 out-of-pocket cap on drug costs for seniors, $35 a month cap on insulin. These are significant health savings, so I like to put that. And then, of course, continued rebates for the purchase of health insurance. So people are going to continue to see their health insurance costs go down and their drug costs to go down.
So is that effective now?
The drug pricing negotiations will come into play. The insulin is now in play, and the $2,000 cap is 2025. So it's coming down the pike. So I put that in one bucket. The second bucket is making renewable clean energy more affordable for more Americans. There's tax rebates, there's tax credits, so that families, especially low-income families, can access more efficient heat pumps, more efficient electrical appliances, solar panels, being able to access the type of technology that will allow them to then have lower energy prices. So significant cost savings for people with respect to being able to make the transition to renewable energy, plus the tax credits for purchasing electric vehicles. So that's the second bucket. The third bucket is the investment in clean energy, and that's really where our state is going to see the most benefit. $220 million has been invested in Nevada, directly invested in Nevada. One, helping us deal with the drought, but two, helping us make that transition. But then you sort of have the downstream impacts. It means 11,000, we've already seen the creation of 11,500 strong union labor jobs in clean energy here in Nevada, and direct investment of over $9 billion. And so you got the direct in-your-pocket healthcare savings, you have the tax incentives and rebates to help you make that transition so you can see reduced energy costs. And then, of course, we have the job creation and direct investment, because Nevada has always been a leader in renewable energy. And so we were in, and 80% of our land is federally controlled. We have sunshine 340 days a year, not to mention geothermal and wind energy as well. And so we are just sort of right at that apex to take advantage of this, the largest investment in climate change in American history. And so I think Nevada is in a great place to take advantage of this bill.
You alluded to water. It's been a big issue over the last several years at Lake Mead, the water level.
Absolutely. We've done the drought contingency plan, and as you recall, last year things were looking rather bleak for southern Nevada. We were going to be at a stage 3 emergency. We've already taken reductions, and there was a historic agreement that was met in May of the 7 lower basin states where through investments from the Inflation Reduction Act, we're going to see a 3 million acre-foot reduction in water use across all 7 states. And that investment is basically incentives to help agriculture, farmers maybe fallow some fields or use less water efficient or, produce less water efficient crops. But we still have work to do. So that agreement got us through 2026. And it was basically an agreement where all the 7 states came together and said, this is a collective problem and we're all going to have to take a hit. So by 2026, we're going to have to be back at the table in the meantime, making sure we're doing more conservation, more recycling, more reuse of water. And so I passed a bill as part of the infrastructure package, my large-scale water recycling bill. And this is allowing federal investment to support large-scale water recycling. So the Southern Nevada Water Authority, which, by the way, you have to give great kudos to them because we have been a leader in water conservation in Southern Nevada, and all our residents, by the way, who have taken advantage of some of these federal investments. But they're in a partnership with LA Metro, where LA Metro will build a water recycling plant. Southern Nevada Water Authority will help support it, invest in it, and in exchange, and then the federal government, through my bill, will invest in it, and in exchange, we will save water in Lake Mead for about 500,000 homes. And so those are like innovative, it's innovative collective action because, as we know, water is a resource that 40 million Southwest Americans rely on. And Colorado River has always been oversubscribed, even in a non-drought year. We had an over precipitation this winter, large snowpack. We are not out of the drought yet. And we still have to continue to work to make sure we preserve and conserve that valuable resource.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was looking through a list of questions to talk with you about, and it could have been the same, I said this earlier, it could have been the same issues from years ago, whether it's abortion issues, whether it's the economy, whether the medical cost of prescription drugs,
right.
and they're all the same issues.
Although, abortion, with the Supreme Court Dobbs decision has become obviously a major issue throughout this country. And even though access to abortion is protected in Nevada, that decision has had incredible impact on access to maternal care here. We only have 8 abortion clinics here in Nevada, and they have seen over a 35% increase in out-of-state women coming to access abortion. We have a shortage, as you know, of OBGYNs in our state. We need 90 OBGYNs in Southern Nevada just to meet the demand. And so you have, one, the shortage, then you have this influx of people coming in, and then you're seeing increased wait times. And so for someone who is pregnant under 12 weeks, they have to wait at least a week to see a doctor. You know, and when you're accessing prenatal care, that's such a vital time to get a care as soon as possible. After 12 weeks, women are seeing up to 30 days of wait time. And so that's impacting maternal health. It's impacting the health of the babies. And so it's, even though we have it protected here in Nevada, we know that, one, that's why protecting the majority in the House of Representatives is so important, because should Democrats lose, we have lost the majority, but should we lose the majority in the Senate, we have already seen attacks on access to abortion nationwide, which would supersede our protections that we have here in Nevada. And so that's been an incredibly important issue federally.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you say we're protected here in Nevada, it doesn't mean we're going to be protected forever.
That's right.
Right? I mean, that can change. The same way we got protected, we can become unprotected in the same manner, right?
Yes, absolutely.
With voting.
Yeah.
You became a congresswoman during a really contentious time. And I was thinking, people talk about the good old days when people would sit down together in bipartisan nature and compromise and work things out, and government would work, and weren't worrying about the doors closing in government all the time, and not being able to vote on a budget and that type of thing. Life is different there. And you never really witnessed the other side, right? I mean, it's been
I got
contentious
sworn
for you.
in 2019 during
Right.
the government shutdown.
Right.
That, by the way, began when Republicans had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, and had incredible impact here in Southern Nevada in accessing resources, accessing, veterans benefits, being, processing your IRS payment, all sorts of impacts, not to mention all the federal employees that work here in Southern Nevada who saw their job, were furloughed. So it had a big impact. But then, of course, you had the impeachment of President Trump, then, of course, January 6th, and obviously the pandemic, which was so devastating to our entire country, and especially here in Southern Nevada. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Were you surprised?
But, yeah. Well, listen, one of the reasons I ran for Congress, because I was never in elected office before I ran. As you know, I did a lot of nonprofit work here in Southern Nevada.
With education.
Yeah,
issues.
education, communities and schools, the after-school all-stars. And I, like most of Americans, was frustrated with the dysfunction in Washington. And so one of my commitments was to make sure that I was going to try to work across the aisle. I've been ranked the 10th most bipartisan member of Congress. I am the vice chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is the only caucus in Congress that is half Democrat and half Republican. We have 62 members. We meet once a week. We talk about issues that are important, and we move. We were instrumental, by the way, in moving the bipartisan infrastructure bill. As you recall, that was stalled for quite a while until our group got together and worked out a deal, which then obviously the president, we eventually all voted on and the president signed. I'm also the co-chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus. I believe that I don't want to live in a country where you have to have control of all levers of government to get something done. And then once you get that done and perhaps eventually lose that control, then you spend the next 4 years erasing everything you accomplished. And we've seen that go back and forth. I think that Americans are better served when we can work together in a bipartisan manner and pass sustainable legislation. Things that, you know, it might not be perfect, everyone might not have gotten everything they wanted, but the majority can agree on it. That's what democracy is about. And so that's why I spend a significant amount of time making sure I'm doing what I can to work with people on both sides of the aisle. And I hope that, you know, we have seen right now, especially with the crazy election of Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House, it took 15 tries. We call them the terrible 20, these 20 MAGA extreme House members who really, you know, want to basically hold our country hostage to get exactly what they want. And I fear that they are careening us down a path to eventually lead to another government shutdown, and through their demands of the Speaker. So I think that we have a lot of work to do when we get back to Washington on September 12th. We have to pass a budget by the end of the month. And if we don't, if we're not successful, and I believe that there are members who basically, and they have said it out loud, that they don't think a government shutdown would be that bad, Americans are going to suffer. And we have seen an economic recovery coming out of this pandemic, which we've seen here in Southern Nevada, and that recovery is at risk by, being held hostage by these extreme, I call them extreme MAGA Republicans.
Yeah, and it seems like and it happens on both sides. Look, it happened in the Senate on the Democratic side. There was a couple Democratic senators that were holding the Democrats hostage. Now you have these congressional Republicans holding the other side in the House hostage. How do you avoid that? Is there a way, or is this just the system?
Yeah, listen, I think elections have consequences, and I think that if you're a member of Congress is one of those people who's doing it and you don't like it, don't vote to reelect them. I mean, I think as you know, I represent one of the most, I call purple districts in the country. Right. I'm pretty much a third Democrat, a third Republican, a third independent. That's why I spend a significant amount of time in the middle, because that's who I represent. And ultimately my job is to be a representative and to answer to my constituents. And so when you have people who represent perhaps more red districts or more blue districts, they're more fearful of what we call their left and their right, like their extremes. And so they tend to move further and further to the extreme because they don't want to lose a primary, perhaps. And so that's sort of what you're seeing in some of those. How can we change this? Obviously, gerrymandering has had a significant impact on, drawing districts so you have an advantage for one party or another. Right. So there's a lot of things we can do to address those issues.
Is the primary system now become one of the problems? It's creating this.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
We've always had the primary system.
Right.
I really feel that gerrymandering, drawing specific districts has been part of the problem. Drawing, very red districts and very blue districts.
Right. Because once a party's in power, they tend to draw a district to protect the power in that area.
Absolutely.
So they can hold on to it. I drove to San Diego last week. The ride is unbearable. I mean, there's construction, there's one lane, if there's an accident, you're hooked. I've heard about this high-speed train now as you have for this is the day you got here, right?
Yes.
Is it ever going to happen?
It's looking promising. I mean, I know a deal's been made. Again, I believe it's on its way to happening, and I think it will go a great way to alleviating some of the traffic on I-15. But again, that's why the bipartisan infrastructure package was so important, to make those types of investments in our roads, in our airports, to get people off the roads and get them to where they need to go quicker.
Yeah, and when you think about how we, really we're surviving on tourism, and how we haven't dealt with this one issue of getting our tourists here. And by the same token, I have actually a family member who lives out of the country in Peru, trying to come into Las Vegas for vacation. Well, they have to get a visa. Well, to get an appointment for a visa, it's a year away.
Yeah.
So I don't understand our country sometimes when you want to bring tourists in and you put up these roadblocks and make it so difficult for somebody to even get a visa to come visit Las Vegas or to get here in a vehicle.
Well, it's interesting. We've been dealing obviously with passport and visa issues in our office, and all the offices have been inundated with requests, and that's why I just wrote a letter to Secretary Blinken asking him to set up a passport agency office here in Southern Nevada.
Oh, that would be great.
So many people have to, if you
emergencies.
Well, first of all, right now it's taking an average of 13 weeks, over 3 months, to get a passport processed. We have seen, just in my office alone, about 200 people have called asking for assistance. If you multiply that out over all our offices, it's probably over like 1,000 people who have been, caught in this, quagmire.
Yeah.
And then here's the other issue, is we are seeing, because of these extreme Republicans on appropriations, cutting funding for the State Department. Right? And so at the same time, where you want to encourage tourism and and you got to have people to do the processing, and you got to pay them. And so, so that's why I've been leading that effort, and I'm leading a bill as well on visa processing to speed up that process, because it is an economic issue for us, not just here in Southern Nevada, but across the country.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was asking another congressperson about the visa situation. Why does it take a year to get an appointment to get a visa to be a tourist in Las Vegas? And he was telling me that during the Trump administration, that they cut significantly funding for the State Department, so we don't have the manpower to process the visas and the passports, and a lot of that's the hang up here.
Right. That's what, and we're feeling it right now. You think about it, another issue is here in Southern Nevada, the BLM, right? We, in order to build and to develop land here, they need to process land and put it into disposal, but you need people to process it. And at the same time, the Trump administration extremely, cut the BLM workforce. And so now we're seeing that when you're seeing increased housing prices, because we just don't have land to build. And so it's having an impact on everyday Americans when you see this type of, undercutting the just basic resources that we need.
Yeah, particularly when it comes to the passports, and those are security issues as well.
Absolutely.
You want enough staff and competent people to really monitor who is and who is not coming in the country, and where they are, for sure. Transparency. What is health insurance transparency?
Well, listen, so many people, when you go into the hospital to, let's say you broke a leg, right? Depending on your type of insurance, it might cost you a copay, or it may cost you $400.
Deductible, right.
Yeah, and so transparency is basically providing to the patient how much this procedure is going to cost up front. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And we dealt with surprise billing, which was a big issue for people when they'd go into the hospital, and if the provider was not in their network, they'd get a bill for $10,000
Provider
or something.
never told them.
Yeah, no one ever
network.
told them.
Yeah.
So we did pass a bill to address that issue. But we need to continue to work to make sure that, most importantly, that we bring down the cost of healthcare and that we open up access. One of the things that we were proud of was to pass in the American Rescue Plan more GME slots, which are residency slots. And as you know, we have a significant doctor shortage here in Southern Nevada. And in fact, I have a bill that is attempting to change the way GMEs get divvied up across the country and give more preference to underserved or under areas that are dealing with shortages like Nevada, so that we can get more of those. And as we have the UNLV Medical School, we're training, we have schools that are training doctors, but that when a doctor goes and gets a residency, they're more likely to stay where that residency is. So if we're training the doctors, we want to keep them here so that they can live here and then practice here in the future and help us deal with our doctor shortage.
So that's an issue of trying to increase the amount of residency positions available at the hospitals?
Yes, yeah.
Basically,
it's sort of, it's like a finite number that gets divvied up across the country, and so we're trying to get more of that funding here into Southern Nevada so we have more residencies. So doctors that we train, we're more likely to stay here and serve patients here in Southern Nevada.
So now that you've been doing this for a few years, and it's not easy flying back and forth, D.C., Vegas. I mean, I was telling your staff, it's a lot easier if you're a congressperson from Baltimore, right?
That's right. It's like probably like an 8-hour commute door to door.
Yeah, I mean,
if everything goes right,
Yeah, if the plane leaves on. Look, we could talk about airplane travel, plane travel as well, because
gosh,
I mean, you're experiencing it firsthand.
Absolutely.
I mean, you get on a flight, it gets delayed like everybody else. It's not like you're flying around in Air Force One or Trump Air, right?
That's right. That's right.
So are you getting tired of the travel part?
Oh, listen, I mean, it's certainly, it is what it is, but more importantly, I find this job fascinating. One, it's an honor. I'm elected by my constituents to represent them, and I find many parts of the job fascinating. It's certainly a tough job. It's tough traveling. It's tough running for re-election every 2 years, but, I get to work on issues, helping people increase their wages, helping people afford health care, helping people afford prescription drugs, addressing our water problems. I mean, having your hands on issues that are improving people's lives. The other thing I find fascinating about it is I find people fascinating. And so the people that I've gotten to meet, my constituents who come to my office to tell me about some healthcare problem that their child has and why some policy is preventing them from getting the care they need, or to a senior who wants to stay in their home and age in dignity but can't find a worker to come in to help them. Those are issues that really will impact people's lives.
Look,
and so that's been a fascinating part about it.
We have no shortage of problems, so you need to keep traveling. Congresswoman Susie Lee, thank you.
Thanks.